Have you ever wondered why God, in his infinite wisdom, would enact a punishment similar to that of King Herod's infamous massacre? Let's take a moment to unpack these two events that have left indelible marks on the pages of history. The first, a tale as old as time, harkens back to ancient Egypt, where God passed a divine judgment, leading to the death of every firstborn. This was the final and most severe of the 10 plagues, a divine act aimed at convincing Pharaoh to free the Israelites from bondage. Next, we move forward in time to the reign of King Herod, a ruler known for his ruthlessness and paranoia. In a horrific act of brutality, he ordered the massacre of all male infants in Bethlehem, fearing the prophecy of a newborn king who would one day usurp his throne. At a glance, these two events bear a striking resemblance. Both involve a higher power, whether divine or royal, imposing a severe punishment resulting in the death of the innocent, yet one is remembered as a necessary act of divine intervention, while the other is seen as a horrific act of human cruelty. Why is this the case? Could it be the motivations that drive these actions? Or is it a matter of perspective, the lens through which we view these events? Perhaps it's the aftermath, the ripple effects that these actions have on the course of history. Whatever the reasons, the fact remains that these two events, similar in their execution but differing in their reception, present us with an intriguing paradox. So, as we embark on this journey of exploration and understanding, let's keep an open mind. Let's question, probe, and dissect these events, not to pass judgment, but to gain insights into the complex tapestry of divine and human actions. Ponder upon this unsettling parallel as we delve deeper into the mysteries of divine justice. To understand this conundrum, we must first examine the motivations behind these seemingly similar acts. King Herod, as history tells us, was a man driven by fear and an insatiable thirst for power. He was a ruler who clung to his throne with a ruthless grip, willing to go to any lengths to ensure his reign remained unchallenged. When the prophecy of a newborn king reached his ears, Herod saw not a savior, but a threat that could potentially dethrone him, a threat to his absolute rule, a threat he decided to eliminate. And so he ordered the massacre of all male infants in Bethlehem. This horrific act wasn't about justice or righteousness, it was about power, control, and a desperate attempt to cling on to a throne that was never truly his. Now let's shift our gaze to the other side of this coin, to the actions of God in Egypt. The death of the firstborn was indeed a devastating act, but it's crucial to grasp the context and motivation behind it. The Israelites were enslaved, oppressed, and crying out for deliverance. God heard their cries and sought to liberate his people. But Pharaoh's heart was hardened, refusing to let the Israelites go despite numerous warnings and plagues. The death of the firstborn was the final, most potent demonstration of God's power, a tragic but necessary act to break Pharaoh's stubborn resistance. It was an act born out of a desire for liberation, and a demonstration of divine power and justice, a stark contrast to Herod's self-serving fear and desire for control. In essence, the motivations behind these acts are as different as night and day. One was driven by a ruler's fear and desire for control, leading to an act of senseless violence. The other was a divine act of liberation, a response to oppression, and a demonstration of supreme power. Although the actions are alike, the intentions behind them are worlds apart. Now let's ponder upon the concept of divine justice, a key element in understanding God's actions. Divine justice. It's a concept that has intrigued philosophers and theologians for centuries. While human justice is often straightforward, focused on fairness and retribution, divine justice is a different beast altogether. It's not confined to our narrow conception of right and wrong. It operates on a cosmic scale, considering the grand tapestry of existence. Imagine a giant cosmic chess game. Each move, each decision affects the entire game. In the same way, divine justice operates, considering the entirety of existence and the broader picture. It's not just about punishing the guilty or rewarding the innocent. It's about maintaining cosmic balance, ensuring the grand scheme of things moves towards a greater good. God's actions, then, are not acts of senseless violence from a divine perspective. They're strategic moves in the cosmic chess game, designed to maintain balance to serve a greater purpose. The death of the firstborn in Egypt, for instance, wasn't just about punishing Pharaoh for his obstinacy. It was about liberating a whole nation from bondage, setting into motion a chain of events that would shape the course of history. From our human viewpoint, these actions may seem harsh, even cruel. But remember, we're looking at the chessboard from the side. We can't see the entire game. We don't understand all the moves. Our sense of justice, based on our limited perspective, can't comprehend the complexity of divine justice. So when we question God's actions, we're essentially questioning the moves of a grandmaster chess player while barely understanding the rules of the game. It's not about condoning violence or justifying suffering. It's about acknowledging our limited understanding and trusting in the wisdom of a force beyond our comprehension. In the grand scheme of divine justice, God's actions were justified. They were necessary measures, not senseless violence. They served a purpose far greater than we can fathom, a purpose rooted in divine justice. So in the grand scheme of divine justice, God's actions were justified. Human interpretation also plays a crucial role in how we perceive these events. Our understanding of historical events, particularly those of religious significance, is often shaped by our own biases, perspectives, and interpretations. These inner narratives can drastically alter how we view and interpret actions, even those as seemingly black and white as the killing of innocents. Consider King Herod's massacre of the innocents. Universally, his actions are condemned. There is no ambiguity in his intent. It was a clear act of brutality born out of jealousy and fear, desiring to secure his throne from the prophesied King of the Jews. There's a consensus among historians and theologians alike that Herod's actions were malicious and unjustifiable. However, when we examine the killing of the firstborn in Egypt as described in the book of Exodus, the waters become muddier. This act, too, involved the death of innocents. Yet many interpret it differently. Why? Because it's attributed to God. As such, it's often seen through the lens of faith and religious interpretation. For some, it's a display of divine justice, a necessary act to liberate the Israelites from slavery. For others, it's a troubling and challenging event to reconcile with a loving and merciful God. The disparity in our reactions to these two similar events underscores the impact of human interpretation. Our personal beliefs, faith, and cultural backgrounds heavily influence how we perceive and interpret these narratives. It's not the objective facts of the events that differ, but rather our subjective interpretation of them. In the realm of religious texts and historical events, interpretation often becomes a matter of faith. It's not only about what the text says, but also about how we, as individuals with our unique perspectives and biases, read and understand it. The narratives we hold on to, the lenses through which we view these events, can shape our understanding of right and wrong, just and unjust, divine and human. They can influence our moral compass, alter our perception of justice, and even shape our relationship with the divine. Our perception of these events is heavily influenced by our personal beliefs and interpretations. So, is God better than King Herod despite the disturbing similarities in their actions? This question has echoed through our discussion, and now it's time to bring it all together. We started our journey by looking at two seemingly parallel events: King Herod's massacre of the innocents in Bethlehem and the divine act in Egypt where God took the lives of the firstborn. Both actions resulted in the loss of innocent lives, a fact that is challenging to reconcile, but then we dug deeper. We examined the motivations behind these actions. King Herod, driven by fear and a deep-seated desire to maintain power, acted out of self-interest. God, on the other hand, acted as a means of liberation for the Israelites from the oppressive reign of the Pharaoh. The intent here was not personal gain, but the establishment of justice and freedom for an oppressed people. We further explored the concept of divine justice. It's a complex, nuanced topic that can be hard to grasp. The divine act in Egypt was a response to the Pharaoh's stubbornness and refusal to free the Israelites despite multiple warnings. It was a last resort, a drastic measure to restore balance and ensure freedom. Then we tackled the impact of human interpretation. Our understanding of these events is influenced by our perspectives, our beliefs, and our cultural and historical contexts. It's vital to remember this when we're grappling with such profound questions. So where does this leave us? While the actions of God and King Herod may seem similar on the surface, a deeper examination reveals crucial differences in motivation, justice, and interpretation. In the end, it is not about who is better or worse, but about understanding the complexities of divine actions and human interpretations. We may not always find easy answers, but it's the pursuit of understanding that helps us grow and evolve in our spiritual and philosophical journeys.